following program is sponsored by CBN.
Well, welcome to 700 Club Israel. The silence is deafening. The Islamic regime has kept its nation in a communications blackout in Iran, yet the names and pictures of those killed still are trickling out. Some human rights groups estimate the death toll exceeds 30,000. We're also hearing reports that the number could be as high as 90,000. Well, that's more in a month that have been killed in 2 years in Gaza. Yet there's been no outrage from the international community, no protest, no calling for this to be named a genocide. Well, joining us for more is Goldie Gamari. She's an Iranian-born activist. She joins us now via Zoom. Welcome to 700 Club Israel.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's an honor to be here.
Well, you lived this firsthand. You were just a toddler when you fled Iran back in the early days in 1979. What exactly happened to your family that forced them to leave?
Well, it's the same thing that's happening right now to Iranians. They're murdering. They're murdering anyone and everyone for any reason whatsoever. So what happened to my father is during the early days of the Islamic regime taking over, he was just driving in the car with my mother, and I was an infant, and he was pulled over by a bunch of Islamic regime affiliated people, and he was questioned for no reason, and they actually asked him to get out of the car, and my mother panicked and held onto his arm and said, "Don't get out of the car. If you get out, they're going to shoot you." And so, thankfully, instead of getting out, my father just, put the pedal to the metal and he sped off. But there's no rhyme or reason to what happened then, and there's no rhyme or reason to what's happening now. The Islamic regime is murdering indiscriminately anyone and everyone. And the number is certainly over 50,000. Innocent, unarmed Iranians murdered by the regime. Some are saying close to 90,000. We won't know the full scale until after the regime is overthrown and we're able to properly account for every single innocent Iranian murdered.
Well, walk us through the ideology. What is it about this version of Islam that allows them to indiscriminately kill people?
Well, I mean, first of all, I'm not Muslim. I've never been Muslim. So, I mean, it's, I look at this from the outside looking in. It's a very cult-like, behavior, this branch of Shia Islam. It's very much a cult of martyrdom and death. And essentially, what their book tells them is that anyone who is stopping them from their jihad, who is stopping them from taking over the world and turning into an Islamic ummah, that person can be murdered. And so for them, it's actually a badge of honor for them to murder, the non-Muslims and murder the infidels and murder anyone who stands in their way. And that's why Khamenei, the supreme dictator of the regime, says in his sermons that anyone who stands in the way of the Islamic regime will be murdered. And so for this oppressive cult that has occupied and invaded Iran for the last 47 years, they view us as the enemy. And so Iran really is the biggest occupation right now. It's an open-air prison. We've been occupied by these foreign invaders, and many of them are not even Iranian. Many are from Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan. Many are from, Hezbollah, Lebanon. There's some Palestinians in there as well. And the militia forces right now that the Islamic regime has funded for the last 47 years to attack Jews in Israel, they're the same ones right now who are in Iran murdering Iranians, Hezbollah, Hashd al-Shabi, Houthis, the Fatimiyun, and others as well.
Well, why is the West not aware of this as a religious obligation? It seems like they view it as they're obligated by what they're taught to kill anyone who opposes jihad and comes against the regime or comes against any of the jihadi warriors. But that's not widely known. It seems to be hidden. Why are we reluctant to tell the truth? This is what they really believe. And if you fall within this category of saying we stand against you indiscriminately killing people, they now say, well, I'm obligated under my moral authority with what my religion teaches. I'm now obligated to kill you. Why isn't that publicized?
Well, that's because, the Islamic regime has been using the stolen blood money of Iranians to export its terrorism and revolution around the world. It's jihad. So it's not just about funding, it's not just about funding its terror proxies in the Middle East. The Islamic regime also funds various groups, organizations, pundits, academics, lobbyists, to whitewash its crimes and to promote a certain narrative or agenda. And anyone who speaks out against it, especially us Iranians, we're accused of Islamophobia. So the regime has been doing this for many years. One example, for example, is this organization in the United States called NIAC, the National Iranian American Council. NIAC is pretty much the lobby group of the Islamic regime, and NIAC is responsible for pushing Obama to agree to the terms of the JCPOA, which of course turned out to be disastrous. So the reason that more people aren't talking about this is because the Islamic regime and also the Muslim Brotherhood have spent, I would say, hundreds of millions of dollars in the last few decades to promote a certain narrative. And of course, anyone, for example, like me, who speaks out against it, we're automatically accused of Islamophobia in order to keep people from knowing the truth.
Well, I've personally gone through it where I was trying to do a documentary on the Battle of Tours. And so here you are recreating Charles Martel and his resistance of the jihadists who were trying to take over France. And it's where we come to this Christian notion that there's this place called Christendom, and the leader of Christendom has to be a defender of the faith against the Muslims. And it wasn't just that documentary, it was another one on the siege of Vienna. And if the Christians hadn't won those battles, all of Europe would be Muslim today. And it just seems as you the naval battle of Lepanto, all of these things need to be known in our history, but they seem to be completely unknown. And we seem to have this sense that the Crusades were somehow a violation, and we attacked innocent Muslims.
Can I just say something? It's very interesting that you bring up the Crusades, because I actually made a YouTube video about that. I'll send it to your producers after, but I made a YouTube video where I basically, I was addressing Christians, and I was like, stop apologizing for the Crusades. Like, you guys did nothing wrong. And I basically said exactly what you just said. The reason that Europe is not Muslim today and everyone's not wearing burqas and yelling Allahu Akbar is because of the Crusades. The Crusades were a direct response to jihad. And everyone forgets about Spain. Spain was occupied by the Muslims for 700 years before Spaniards and Christians were able to liberate Spain. And now, unfortunately, today, you're seeing the same thing happening again, except this time they're being very smart about it. And it's more of a civilizational jihad than, the jihad of violence.
Where's the hope here? You've said that Iranians today can see and taste freedom. Is that hope alive? I'm hearing reports that people are afraid to walk the streets, that the regime has completely crushed the revolution. Where's the hope today? So
people are more hopeful than ever. What I would say is the revolution has not been crushed. It's a strategic retreat until the appropriate time to come out again. And a very good example of that is yesterday was the anniversary of the Islamic regime taking over and occupying Iran back in 1979. So yesterday was their anniversary. Pretty much similar to like the jihadi version of 4th of July. although, I don't want to compare 4th of July to, Islamic oppression. But the regime claimed that 34 million Iranians came out to celebrate. They put out all of these AI generated videos. They had live feeds that included generals who had been murdered, had been exterminated by Israel back in the 12-day war. So, it was all this propaganda. Their propagandists were working overtime to make it seem as if 34 million Iranians came out. But the truth came out. And I would say, throughout the entire country, population of 90 million Iranians, less than 2 million Iranians, Iranians actually participated in this, celebration anniversary of the Islamic regime taking over. So the Islamic regime is pretty much done. They just don't know it yet. It's really just a matter of how quickly the regime falls. And, we're all very hopeful that with President Trump's assistance in taking down the regime, that's going to give Iranians the opportunity to go back out in the streets and reclaim the country.
I'll just give two more history points. One has to do with the overthrow of Suharto in Indonesia. That actually did lead to a democracy with freedom of press and freedom of religion, and that seemed to be established now. There's still an Islamic majority, and there's still blasphemy laws, but it's fairly free. In a contrast with Egypt, where after Arab Spring and Mubarak, I just was shocked that the Muslim Brotherhood won the election. So, looking at the future of Iran, can we hope that it's more like an Indonesian revolution, or are we looking at an organized jihadist political party coming back into power?
So what a lot of people don't know is that prior to 1979, Iran was a constitutional monarchy. It was a secular democratic society, and there was freedom for everyone. The only people who didn't have freedom prior to 1979 were the communists, and that's because during that time, Iran bordered the USSR, and the USSR was trying very hard to bring Iran under the Iron Curtain. And so the USSR was training and funding communist agents to destabilize the country. So the only people who didn't have political freedom, quote unquote, were the communists, and of course many of the Islamists who were trying to turn Iran into a jihadi country. So we as Iranians, we already have a prior established history of being a secular, democratic, constitutional monarchy. That's what we're fighting to go back to. And, our leader, His Royal Highness Reza Pahlavi, the Crown Prince of Iran, of course, I like to call him the Shah. The Shah of Iran has made it very clear that his transition plan, which is in place, that transition plan is something that's going to lead the country from an Islamic dictatorship to a functioning secular democratic society where, people will have freedom of religion. But one of the things that we want is complete and total separation from church and state. The other thing really quickly I want to mention is that Iranians were not actually Muslim. And I would say right now, less than 20% of Iranians identify as Muslims. The vast majority of Iranians are secular Zoroastrian or agnostic. And in fact, the fastest growing religion in Iran right now is Christianity. The only reason people think that Iran is 99.9% Muslim is because under Sharia law, apostasy is punishable by death. And so everyone just basically has to pretend they're Muslim in order to avoid being executed. But of course, that didn't stop the regime from murdering over 50,000 Iranians in the last month.
Last question. What can Christians do for the people of Iran? What can we do to help them achieve freedom?
Thank you so much. Well, first of all, pray for us, pray for Iran. Prayers go a long way and mean a lot. Second of all, I would say, reach out to Iranians or, take some time to learn more about more about our movement, please make sure that you're following Reza Pahlavi. Reza Pahlavi is the leader of the Iranian National Revolution. He is the only person that we trust. Millions and millions of Iranians in occupied Iran are chanting his name, calling for his name. And also, if you are in Toronto, Munich, or Los Angeles, we're actually having a global day of solidarity on Saturday, February 14. So, I encourage everyone to come join us, be our Valentine. I actually have a list of all of the cities where the rally is happening. The website is very simple. It's just tinyurl.com/Iran rally. So, just being our voice and standing with us and supporting us, that's the biggest help that you could give us.
Well, Goldie Ghumari, thank you for being with us. Thank you for your courage. It's a real honor to have you on the show. For the latest inside information, make sure to follow Goldie's across social media. She live streams on YouTube at Ghumari MPP. So again, thank you for being with us. We really appreciate all your insight and your wisdom. In Great Britain, Jews face rapidly rising anti-Semitism and discrimination. The situation is so dire that there's talk in Washington, D.C. of granting British Jews asylum in the United States. CBN News senior reporter Dale Hurd brings us this firsthand look from London.
Jewish businesses under siege by mobs. Jews attacked in the streets and forced to meet in secret or under tight security. This isn't Nazi Germany. It only reminds some people of Nazi Germany. It's Great Britain, once a safe haven for Jews, and not anymore. When it was announced a few weeks ago that the White House might offer asylum to British Jews, some thought it was a silly idea. The leader of Britain's campaign against anti-Semitism, Gideon Falter, does not.
There was a time when that would have seemed very far-fetched, but we are now living in a time when British Jews are extremely worried about their future.
Shop for kosher food in London and you might see these fake price tags activists are putting on products, saying your purchase helps support genocide. Walk down the street looking Jewish, and if you're not attacked like this man, you might have to walk past one of these billboards condemning the Zionist occupation. Or you might have a swastika painted on your house.
On the way to go to shul, we turned around to discover that some cowards visited our home on Friday night and decorated it.
The anti-Semitism here is horrifying. It reminds me of the early 1930s.
Been getting nightmares about terrorist attacks.
A trend that was already evident before October 7th has simply metastasized out of control. We have rampant Islamist and leftist extremism in the UK, and perhaps more worrying still, we have authorities which are failing to do anything about it, or if they are acting, it's only acting to appease the extremists.
Falter says the British government has not cracked down on dangerous terrorist groups that are operating in the United Kingdom.
The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps of Iran, the Muslim Brotherhood, the Houthis. I mean, this is the kind of craziness that Britain has subjected its citizens to.
The United Arab Emirates, itself a Muslim kingdom, believes British colleges are now so infiltrated by the Muslim Brotherhood that it will no longer pay for its students who attend universities here, fearing it could radicalize them. When Jewish college student Tali Smuss began her freshman year at King's College in London, she logged on to a group for her English major, and the discussion was about educating Zionists.
As the only Jewish person on my course, I asked them why they thought the Zionists need an education. And they started like a whole tirade against me, like, is there a Zionist on this group chat? And then they decided to threaten me. They decided to say that if I dare to interrupt the lecture again, they should pick me up and band together and carry me out.
And when she took the matter to a college official,
she tells me, maybe you should try to understand why they're treating you this way.
Gaza, Gaza, make us proud! Put those lions in the ground!
British kids who are going to be our next leaders are being radicalized into a way of thinking that is so fundamentally un-British that it is just unrecognizable. and it is dangerous.
Yael Cohen Rothschild, a Sephardic Jew studying at Cardiff Metropolitan University in Wales, found blood smeared on her door and on an Israeli flag. In a second incident, someone wrote Judah, German for Jew, on her door.
Were telling me, hide your Magen David, take down your mezuzah, like nothing will happen if you don't make it obvious that you're Jewish. Like even now I'm coordinating with my university to have someone escort me on and off campus, because that's literally how unsafe I felt.
Yael is considering moving to Israel. We asked Jewish journalist David Collier, who receives regular death threats because he writes about anti-Semitism, if he would seek asylum in the U.S. if it was offered.
Where's my suitcase? I'll be honest. I mean, I would imagine that if it was serious, I would imagine there will be a lot of takers.
Very few British Jews now believe the situation here will improve. 2/3 have said they don't believe they have a future in Britain. And now their options are to either deal with the danger they face or leave.
It's becoming much harder to believe in a future where I and my family will be safe.
Neither of my children will be here in 10 years' time. I can tell you that straight off, and we'll be gone as well.
After the Manchester synagogue attack last year, Prime Minister Keir Starmer promised to do whatever it takes to crack down on anti-Semitism. However, polling shows very few British Jews think the government is doing enough, and most here fear it's only a matter of time before the next terror attack against Jews.
Thankfully, we live in an era where there is one place that any Jew in the world can go to, which is Israel.
Anti-Semitism is also rising in the U.S. However, Falter believes at least some British Jews would consider asylum in the United States if it was offered. Dale Hurd, CBN News, London.
Well, let's continue to stand strong with the Jewish people worldwide and contend against this horror, the anti-Semitism that is spreading like wildfire throughout Europe, the UK, and right here in the United States. Well, if you can dream it, you can do it. Thousands of children across Israel are discovering a world of possibilities thanks to a mentorship program by a group called Youth Futures. And it's made possible by you.
Youth Futures is a 3-year intervention program for at-risk elementary students, typically from 3rd to 6th grade. It operates in up to 60 communities across Israel and reaches about 7,000 children each year. Working with both children and their parents, the organization addresses learning gaps and social and emotional challenges. Mentors guide small groups of 22, helping children build confidence, set goals, and thrive. CBN Israel supports Youth Futures in this essential work, helping expand mentorship and bring lasting change to families who need it most.
In 20 years, some of the results that we saw were more kids who are confident and more kids who are thriving. Parents tell other parents, you cannot understand the change that my child has gone through, and they recommend it.
One of the students used to struggle because he was very shy and was not social. Today, you can see him in drama classes, performing on stage, talking to everyone, and participating actively.
I think Youth Futures does work in a very perfect way. It's a rescue for us. We rescue these children and their families also.
When I accept the kids for the program, I told the families, you win a lottery. When they have a mentor, see their kids daily, visit homes, it's a bridge between the school and the home. So they won lottery.
It's amazing to see how just, a small encounter and a small example of what a mentor does with a child opens their mind, helps them think about the future, helps them create opportunities for themselves, because if you can dream it, you can do it.
CBN Israel proudly stands with Youth Futures to deliver life-changing mentorship and support, paving the way for a brighter tomorrow for Israel's at-risk youth and families.
I would say, first of all, thank you, because this help is so not taken for granted. I mean, we were able to expand our services in East Jerusalem, to add another mentor, to support 21 additional children, to reach populations we have never reached before. Thank you, and we invite you and welcome you to come and visit, to come and see how your involvement and how your partnership really helps lives be turned around.
That thank you goes from Israel to your home if you're supporting CBN Israel. If you're not a supporter, if you're not a donor, I invite you to join with us. It's real simple. You go to a phone and you call us. 1-800-350-2230 is the phone number. You could also go online at cbn.com/support Israel, or you can text to give. Just text Support Israel to 71777. Either way, do it now and say, yes, I want to be a part. I want to be a part of raising up the next generation. I want to be a part of helping Holocaust survivors. I want to be a part of helping everyone who is part of the horrific attacks in the Gaza envelope. You're helping rebuild the kibbutzes there. You're helping the Jerusalem Dateline. You're helping all the wonderful news coming out of the News Bureau in Jerusalem. You're helping the documentaries. You're part of all of it. So join 1-800-350-2230. Here's a word from Exodus. Do not be afraid. Stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today. God bless. We'll see you next week.
Why should Christians bless and support the Jewish people and Israel? If you're a follower of Jesus, you must take his words to heart. Jesus said, "Salvation comes through the Jews." God chose to write his story of redemption in and through the Jewish people, and he will never turn back on the call and grace given to Israel. At CBN Israel, we have the great privilege to bless and tangibly demonstrate the never-ending love of God for the Jewish people and all the peoples of this land. Partner with us and help terror victims, immigrants fleeing anti-Semitism, refugees, Holocaust survivors, single mothers, to rebuild their lives with dignity and hope by meeting their physical, emotional, and spiritual needs. Give today and let your faith, which is rooted in Israel's story, shine for the glory of God.